we were just debugging with Sina, getting the high tests running again. Then we got all the tests except one running, and then we tried to figure out what's wrong with that test. It seems like that test works on the mainnet, but it doesn't work in our test suite.
You mean it doesn't work on the Simulate fork or Simulate branch?
That should be the main branch,
Oh.
or the master, but it doesn't seem to work there. But then it works on anywhere else.
Oh, I see. So we've got some like leakage or something occurring in our test suite, like cross-test leak or something.
I don't know. It's also that the chain that the tests are running has changed. That could have an impact on it, but then that test doesn't have anything that would kind of care what is the chain underneath. Like some of the tests were failing because the test chain has been changing, and I'm not really a fan of that. All the tests are using the same test chain, and then if someone is adding more stuff to it, then it kind of breaks other tests. But maybe that's a good if we get it to merge, and then it's somebody else's responsibility that if they add more blocks to the chain, then they should be fixing the Eth Simulate test as well.
Oh, you're saying that the test suite is run on top of a certain set of blocks.
Yeah.
And you're saying you think that we have someone changed that set of blocks that's been run on?
Yeah, they added 10 more blocks that broke some of the tests.
Are those blocks universal, or is that set of blocks just like per test fixture?
It's for all the tests.
Oh yeah, that's bad. You should have the set of blocks like scoped in some way. All these tests use this set of blocks. All these tests use that set of blocks. Otherwise,
yeah,
like you said, every time you add a block, you have to rewrite everything.
Yeah, but hey, Roger, if you have to leave soon, then let's hear from you. What's the status?
Is it for me?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So, for me, I helped Diptansu for Diptansu is an intern, and Nidamine is working on Eth Simulate and Debug Simulate. Yeah, I helped him to write those endpoints, and for my case, I won't get much of time to work on Eth Simulate, but now since I'm free with the other tasks that I have already done, so I can focus on it right from today.
So I think Rohit, after you, I'll also go. So yeah, so as Rohit mentioned that I just joined Nethermind 3 weeks back. So I have released the two endpoints for debug simulate and trace simulates, which basically perform the simulation on get like block tracer and parity like block tracer. And I got some few PR comments from Lukash around some more refactoring that is needed. So I'll just do that and try to uh, get the PR merged hopefully within this week. That is from my side.
I guess that those endpoints are not running somewhere that we could try to
no,
curious to it to test what did they look like.
They won't be on mainnet yet.
Yeah, the point was to get those kind of tested that they can be done and then discuss more about them as like testing, so that they weren't supposed to go to mainnet right away. But yeah, I don't know what they have discussing about them. Since then we would prefer that they would look the same in all of the clients. I don't know if there's many parameters or kind of things that we should be deciding how they should look like, or how standardized all that stuff is.
I see. Rohit, any thoughts here?
Sorry, for testing of these trace endpoints.
Yeah.
I mean, testing and also checking that the input and output are the kind of the same in the other clients, so that if there's something that we need to decide on what they should look like, or is there some kind of agreement right away that they should look like certain way? Like Sina probably has a lot of opinions on how it should look like, but I don't know if there's.
Yeah. So I guess what Killer is saying, it would be nice to see like the schema for this API that you guys are building, because
Okay.
then we could all coordinate and try to have a similar method on across the different clients. So
Got
if
it.
you guys can just publish something about how the
Got
API
it.
looks like, and um, possibly provide like a branch to Kilari so that he can test it and see how it works.
Sure. So I can actually share the sample. I can actually like document the sample payload endpoints and share it with all of you. But where can I share it? Like, what's the channel or anything?
You can share it in Telegram, or now if you're discussing it here, you can share it in the chat as well.
Okay, okay. Right now, I may not have that document ready, Clary. I'll just create the document and share it on Telegram.
Okay, that sounds good.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you.
And I guess there's two APIs.
There's two APIs. Yes, one for parity like block tracer and the other one for get like block tracer.
Okay.
Yeah. I'll share the branch and payload with you soon on Telegram.
That sounds good.
Yeah. Thank you.
I think we had some discussing the Eth Simulate that we should decide. Oh yeah, there was that Pukori Eth asking for some inner cause simulation. And then Sina commented that that's probably very difficult to add. And I also haven't heard of that anyone needs that kind of things before. And then there was also setting some depth parameter and then it can make calls.
Yeah, so I guess I can go now. So we were trying to debug with Kilari to fix the Hive pipeline, because now basically it's kind of not possible to run the tests. That should be fixed soon, I think. And yeah, I still have the PR open for the issue discovered by Besu regarding the block hash. And yeah, this week I will try to get it merged. So that's on my agenda. And something else, I'm posting a PR in the chat. Someone made a fix for Prague for Eth Simulate. So basically it's important to process the system calls when doing the when running Eth Simulate blocks. So we were not doing this, and so I mean it might be a similar issue in other clients. That's why I'm raising it here.
What's the issue there? What?
So basically with Prague, we have a few new system calls. One being to process the withdrawals.
Yeah.
So yeah, these have to be processed after running the block.
But
Because the
are
result
there
is,
withdrawals in the Eth
well, I
Simulate?
mean, if in the simulation block there is a withdrawal request from a smart contract, then basically what will happen is like okay, so yeah, it will show itself in the block hash, because these will be hashed up and put in the block header as part of the request hash. So that's one
Yeah.
thing. And I guess we also might discuss whether we want to add some more fields like withdrawals or something, but I mean, I guess not. Well, it's certainly an option to add the requests also as a result. But since we want to maintain compatibility with the RPC interface of a block, then probably not.
Yeah. with type 4 transaction, we didn't decide how it should be structured, so that can you bypass the signature checks, or there needs to be some kind of from or to be delegated field. And I guess we didn't decide on how we should handle those. Or you also suggest that you can even bypass, so that we don't add that kind of signature bypass. You can just set the code of any account to what you want, so that in a way not mandatory to be able to spoof those. But I think it would be still useful that you could have been able to spoof them all the way.
I think this we have to raise on a different channel, because changing this will affect ETH call as well. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
But what is the right channel for this?
The RPC channel on ETH R&D Discord, I'd say. Lukasz?
So for withdrawals and other requests, we use the same code more or less to, well, exactly same code in this instance to run ETH Simulate, but the block we are building doesn't have any of them. So it would work in Nevermind, I think, out of the box if we change how we create the block.
Well, I can raise that RPC issue in the chat channel and see if anyone replies to it. But I don't know who are the people who are working on these things. I thought it was for the get side, it's the Sina working on these things. And getting those new parameters.
Other
All
people
and
might have an opinion as well.
Okay, yeah.
But we also
the
have here-
dictator of the JSON RPC.
Yeah. We also have here Tony. Tony, are you from Besu by any chance?
No, I'm not. I'm from Infra.
Infra? Infra, okay. Oh, nice.
Oh, didn't you have a question for Infura Alchemy Quick Node, Sina? I forgot what it was a couple weeks ago.
The
Yeah,
gas estimation stuff.
the gas estimation.
Yeah. We should use this up.
Yeah, it does need a bit of context. I'm trying to remember.
It's about if you add the gas estimation simulation straight into the Eth Simulate, or should it be a different method?
Right. For load on node operators.
I guess the issue there is that with the gas estimation, you need to run the transaction multiple times, and then it can make it very gas heavy.
Yeah. So, a question for you, Tony, since you have some views, I'm sure, on the infrastructure side of things. So when you do a estimate gas, the transaction is executed multiple times, and so the operational cost of running the transaction is accrued multiplying, because basically the gas estimation strategy is more or less a binary search. Like you run it with a certain amount of gas, see if it passes. If it does, you run it with less, see if it passes, and you bisect that if it doesn't, and you do this multiple times. At the very least, you run it twice. And so this makes ETH estimate gas more computationally expensive on the JSON RPC node than something like ETH call, which only runs a transaction once. For ETH Simulate, we were discussing whether we should add like a flag or something that makes it so when you call ETH Simulate, you can have it also return the gas estimation for one or more of the transactions in the simulated block. Or should we move that to a separate method? So it'd be like ETH Simulate Estimate or something, or ETH Estimate Gas Simulation or something, I don't know what. From an infrastructure standpoint, do you have any thoughts on, like, infrastructure people have to charge differently for each method depending on the utilization of that method? Does it matter to you whether it's one method that has one JSON RPC method that has two different, like a parameter that makes it cost more or less? Or is it better to have two separate methods that can be billed or charged differently to your end users?
I cannot speak on that, like on the behalf of the all infra commercials. From a user perspective, I think like as a developer, I would prefer to just get the gas estimate as part of the call response instead of having to call a second method.
You said you would rather have it as a parameter, so just like a flag you can pass to the call?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, as a developer, probably. Yeah.
Right. So as a developer, you'd find that useful. You're not sure on like the billing side whether that makes a difference.
Yeah, exactly. You can relay that and discuss that with inferior people, but yeah, cannot pronounce myself.
Yeah, if you can ask around and find out if it would make a difference. I tend to agree with you. As a developer, I also like the flag method. It just is a little simpler, having less methods, having it ensures that the syntax for them is guaranteed to always be the same otherwise. But we're worried that we don't want to do this and then have all the infrastructure providers be like, oh my god, this totally breaks our billing system.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So I guess we don't still have good decision on there what to do. I think for the user perspective, I also agree it would be nice that it's just parameter in the method.
I wonder if, just so we don't get blocked, I wonder if we should start working on implementation with it as a parameter, and then just before we finalize or merge into main on any client, we make the decision. Because I'm guessing either way, we like the same amount of work basically needs to go into it either way, and moving it from a parameter to a method, I'm guessing is not going to be a big lift for any of the clients.
That sounds
Well, I
like it.
think. Go ahead.
Yeah, I wanted to say that I don't think it makes a big difference whether, like implementation complexity wise, whether it's a parameter or a separate method. That part is not an issue. Yeah.
Well, I think one thing to decide that does it consume the gas somehow when it's running multiple times the simulation? Does it then consume that global gas? But I don't know if the Eth Simulate works like that or not.
I definitely think that we should. So the client configured global gas limit per JSON RPC call should definitely be deducted for every execution. So if you have to bisect 6 times and you have to do 6 executions, you have to pay towards the global gas limit 6 times. You don't get it for free.
But is the estimate gas working like that? I never heard it would work like that.
I would hope so, but that's a good question. Sina or Lucas, do you know?
Sorry, what was the question?
So you guys, the client has like a global limit on how much gas you can spend in like an ETH call or any method. If you do an ETH estimate gas and you have to bisect six times, does it count the gas 6 times towards that limit?
What? I didn't understand the question. What do you mean 6 times?
So when you do estimate gas, you have to run the same transaction over and over, right? Because the bisecting strategy. Does all of those executions count towards your rate limit?
Yes. The limit is the limit.
Right.
No negotiable.
I think the same for Geth, but I would have to confirm.
I would hope so. And if
Yeah,
not,
I remember that we had to take this into account. I remember that this was a discussion point at some point when designing it.
Okay. So yeah, I think we should do the same thing if we do add estimate flag or something to the simulation.
I think it should be on the transaction level so you can estimate multiple transactions at the same time. So that's something that we need to decide what's the API for that. And then I guess this would be Eth Simulate V2 and not V1.
I guess so, because not providing the gas parameter will change its meaning.
Well, if the gas is left out, then I wouldn't estimate it. I think it should be more explicit from the user that they had to somehow set that it to be estimate. Because it's quite common that you leave it out and then you probably just mean that just consume all the gas because you are doing a call and you don't care about how much gas it consumes.
Well, then in that case, I think it's fine to just add it as a parameter to V1.
my annoyance with that is that then you know that some RPCs support test Eth Simulate, and then you make a call, and then there's kind of multiple versions of Eth Simulate, and I'm not that big fan of that. That I would like that if someone supports Eth Simulate 1, then they would support the whole feature set.
Yeah, I mean, I think that suggests that no matter what, we're gonna have to bump the version if we want to add estimation support, which I'm not opposed to. I'm a big fan of. It'll be a very long time until we run out of numbers, so I'm totally a fan of bumping the version. So it'd be Simulate v2, and then that would have the gas estimation thing, and I think we've talked about. Kalari's got a list somewhere of other things that may go in as well. Or we can just have that, and then Simulate v3 would add something.
My list is list of success that are not all of them are something that we probably all agree that should be there.
Oh, sure.
But then I don't know about the community. Would it be that we just add the Eth Simulate to v2, and then if you want to add something else, then that becomes v3, so that we could be just bumping the versions up rapidly? But I don't know what the community feels about it.
The infamous hard fork scoping problem.
Yeah. Exactly. I would be fine with just adding the gas estimation and nothing else. I don't think there's anything as critical as that.
I'm fine with that. Like I said, I'm a big fan of just using version numbers judiciously, or not judiciously, freely.
Then we need to agree on the spec. So do we add a new parameter that says the estimate, or do we just for the gas limit, would you pass string that estimate and then it would estimate it? Or what would be the good API for this?
As a user who likes languages that have union types, I am a fan of just having the ability to pass like the word estimate as the gas limit parameter. However, I recognize that not all languages have easy to use union types, and so I'm not opposed to moving it to a separate parameter instead. If we do a separate parameter, it just means that we have to agree that it's going to be an error if you provide a gas limit and you say estimate, or would we say if you pass a gas limit and you say estimate, then we start out with that limit and then still do the estimate, or do we estimate but we cap at that amount? Like we have to decide which one of those if we do a separate parameter.
How difficult the block tag is already? That's all. Something that it's already there that can feature that all the clients have to have some kind of support for that. So
yes, but all the clients can make it work. The question is how painful is it? And I would rather not make it very hard to write code in some clients if it's particularly difficult.
a global boolean, like I was thinking that it's in the each transaction you can define if it's estimate or not. But yeah, that's also one way that if there's a global boolean flag and then it would estimate all the missing ones. And that's interesting way as well.
I mean, I don't mean global like client-wide global, just in the simulate method you pass in the boolean.
Yeah, that I meant in the yeah. So when you set that to true, then all the missing ones are estimated in all of the transactions. Yeah, that's interesting way as well. Yeah, I liked it as well. What does Mika think about it?
Okay, I just pasted the 4 options that I see. Sorry, I was only half paying attention to what your question was.
Sign a success team fifth version, which is that we have the global gas flag, and then if that is set, then all the transactions that are missing gas limit, that they are going to be estimated. So it would kind of change the behavior of the missing gas depending on the flag.
I'm not a huge fan of that because I can imagine lots of situations, including Interceptor, where we only want to estimate gas for one of the transactions, not all of them.
Yeah, but then we know the gas of those.
Yeah, I guess we've, in our particular use case, we always have estimated the previous one, so we already have the gas limit, and so we can just include it. We don't need to estimate it.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So I guess the question is there a use case where you would want to do an estimate gas on one transaction? So yes, there is. So there are times where we want to do a transaction, or we want to add a transaction to our simulation stack, and then after that transaction, we want to like get a balance or something, like get a balance or do a call or something, and it would save us round trips if we could just do the estimate at the same time. So like, hey, we're about to do this ERC20 transfer. After the transfer, we want to do some balance checks and do the other checks so we can update a UI somewhere, right? We only need to do the estimate gas for the actual call that we're going to be submitting. The rest of the stuff that we're doing after that is just so we can update our UI to tell the user what changed when they did this transaction. And so I do think there are use cases where you don't want to estimate everything that's missing gas.
With those balance checks, then we don't need to estimate gas for those. We can just consume the whole block.
Well,
but I guess then you wouldn't. Then you would need to explicitly set the gas to those.
Yeah, you'd have to explicitly set the gas, and you would need to be careful not to overconsume, because you need to be able to do both of them. So if you've got like some balance checks or whatever, you'd have to like know what the checks, how much gas those checks are using, so you can set it appropriately, or give them like a ridiculous amount. But if you give them too much, then you can't actually do both of them because you're not gonna have enough gas left in the block to do the second one. It feels like there is potential for a bunch of complexity. If everybody thinks this is a great idea, I won't block it. It just feels like there's situations where you'd want to only estimate the gas of one transaction, and it doesn't mean you have the gas limit for all the other transactions.
I mean, I guess in that case, the gas will be estimated also for the UI things that you mentioned, and is that really terrible?
I mean, it's just operationally expensive. It puts load on the node. If you're paying per some sort of rate limit or whatever, you're gonna exceed your rate limit sooner.
Yeah, I mean, if we get some evidence of that, then sure, but it is much simpler, in my opinion, to have this like global flag than per call.
Yeah, UI finds it sounds the easiest to have that kind of global limit, or the API. That's the simplest API for that. But yeah, it's not that versatile.
I updated my comment in chat with that fifth one.
And now we have even more options. Now it's more difficult. Too many ways of doing this thing.
Hey, Mercy or Akesh, I don't know which of you are transcribing. I'll see you later, Sina. I don't know which of you are transcribing. Does your transcription get chat, or does chat disappear? Like if we type something in the chat, will that make it into the transcript? Mercy or Akesh, either of you guys know?
Hello.
Both of them might.
I'm thinking that's one.
I'm
Hello?
recording by OBS.
And does OBS record the chat?
Yeah.
Okay, so I just want to make sure it didn't get lost.
I'll like copy it to the Telegram as well. List.
Okay, good idea.
Do we have anything else? That's something that we need to decide. But I guess
Yes,
today.
we just need to decide it, but it sounds like we can discuss it in Telegram.
Yeah, so I had wanted to ask Diptanshu about sharing details about tracing methods, but I see he was here, but he's not here right now. I don't know.
Yeah, Sina had to go. He had some conflict at half past.
No, I'm not missing about Diptanshu. Oh, RGT. Thank you everyone. I was on my comments on my peer. Okay, yeah, he has. Okay, and now I see it. Okay. Okay,
Yeah,
so there was a question.
The
Okay, there was one question about the API that we can that I can maybe it will be trivial. So when we are doing ETH Simulate, right? We have generally what we return is that we return information about the block, right? And then we return internal information about each transaction in a block.
Yep.
What should be result of the backtrace and trace general? Should we also return the information about the block, like block hash, block gas used, whatever, or should we just return the information about the traces as a list, for example, in a list of lists, right? Per block.
No.
Should we also include that block information? That's the question.
My instinct is yes, we should include the block information. And I would even take it a step further and suggest that we should include the between transaction state routes. If you're doing a trace, it seems reasonable that you might be debugging something, such as a consensus failure, and being able to see the between transaction state routes may be helpful. I don't hold this position strongly. It just seems like it might be useful. And if we're returning the block information anyways, maybe we can also include that, which is more of a block thing, not a transaction thing.
Okay, but how would we return it on the trace transaction level or on the?
Yeah, it feels like it's kind of metadata about the transaction, so unclear exactly where you would put it.
And do we want to add even a more additional complexity on it, because that's even more complexity, to be honest.
Yeah, that's fair. Do clients not calculate the between transaction route?
No, it was an EAP that was so long ago that we don't. There was an EAP about it that on the beginning of Ethereum we did it even on normal blocks. I think it even went to receipts. But it was changed a long time ago because of it was pretty slow.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not opposed to ignoring that then. But yes, I do feel like we should return the block data for two reasons. One, I think it's nice if the return result of the API is the same between Eth Simulate and Eth Trace, other than Eth Trace has more data, because it allows clients to use similar data structures and reuser data structures. Also, I do feel like there are many situations where you might be using the Trace API instead of Simulate because you need the additional data, such as for internal transaction calls and whatnot. But the work you're doing still does all the same things that you would want to do with Eth Simulate, and it'd be nice to not have to call them both. And so if you just got all the information in one call,
so we
nice.
generally, I think, have this. I think it's more or less working. I'm not exactly sure if it's, it still needs a bit of work, but we are close to have finalized PR, to be honest. So that's our current state with that. I think I even hope Diplanche would share something today, like have a demo, but I think we should have started with that maybe.
Oh yeah. Seems like today is Monday not a good day for people? Seems like we had 3 people who had to go in the first 10.
Well, I think he's on Pacific time or something, and it's really early for him. Or like US, sorry, not Pacific, US West Coast.
Oh, and he stayed up for this call, not.
Yeah.
Woke up for it. I see. Okay.
Or woke up or something.
I have calls like that. I know how he feels.
He was here in the very beginning, and then he was sharing.
Yeah. So okay.
I mean, I can do earlier. I can also do later. This is an optimal time for me, but I can move it earlier or later.
I can do both too.
I would prefer earlier if we move it. But yeah, my biggest use case for the trace would be that when a transaction fails, then you would get more debug information, like where it failed. And I think that's already what it should answer. You can get all the trace up into the failure, and then you would have more information why the transaction failed.
Yeah, even just knowing what contract the failure occurred in would be useful.
And I think it should answer that already, the current feature set.
Okay, so I will try to get some examples for next week or earlier and share in Telegram.
Sounds good.
Sounds good, yeah. Anything else?
Not me.
Okay, talk to you next week.
Yep. Talk to you guys next
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.